Today, the U.S. Embassy opened in Jerusalem, and more significantly, 52 Palestinians, or at least 52, were killed by Israeli soldiers in what is the deadliest day that country has seen in 4 years. And Trump's daughter Ivanka and her husband were the headliners of this event. Amino says easiest, like all day. I don't know what that means, but yeah, okay. I initially planned to do this stream tomorrow, but I figured, I have the opportunity to do so right now, so why not? You know, um, as I was reading stories about this story, I hit like upon seeing the title. I appreciate that, and it's kind of what I wanted to press a bigger issue on because, I could easily just say this was horrible, Israel is evil, at least it's government anyway, and finish the stream like that. But I wanted to more so go into how this highlights everything that's wrong with most forms of media, at least that you see on television. Now, I was watching various stations. You go to Fox for a moment, you go to CNN, just all these networks, and they matter-of-factly mention all the murders and the various casualties here. But what is devoid from any of that coverage is, wait a second, the U.S. is supporting a country that happens to kill tens of people because they did something they didn't like. That's our foreign policy. That's our one great relationship that continues, whether it's Democrat or Republican, that just stays in place forever. But you won't see that. You get more of the standard teleprompter reading. Let's talk about this for 2 minutes. Let's talk about Stormy for another 3. Let's talk about Mueller for another 4 or 5. And I feel like a broken record because I kind of sat back and thought to myself, when are we going to get a change? And I realized that thanks to the lack of term limits in both Israel and Russia, I don't think I've mentioned my discontent with Putin on here. We basically might be stuck with these substandard human rights violating prime ministers for several more decades. I mean, both Netanyahu and Putin are in their late 60s, and these heads of state tend to get the best care, so it's not entirely promising. I don't want either one of them to just go and pass away, but if we can't get them out of there any other way, you have your hands kind of glued, effectively. Say hello to Envoy, and say happy birthday to MLG Gaming, even though he writes all that salacious material. Yeah, Envoy, we're just in here talking about the various casualties and murders that occurred today that you probably saw in the news for maybe 1 minute, and then they went right back to talking about Stormy and the dossier and Comey and just everything else. I get what does... I don't know how this is relevant. I don't even know what he's asking about. So you're going to have to reiterate that question. I'm a little confused. Okay, so we don't have a definitive number, but at least 52, Envoy. We'll probably find out there were more in due time. I keep getting reminded of the fact that you said all those. I did not say that. I get reminded of the fact that we have people who will actively sit here, and I found myself getting stuck in the same scenario where I was talking with this Trump supporter, and he was, talking about all the great things that happen. The economy's up, and we have someone that keeps their pledges, all of that, even though I gave them multiple examples of how that wasn't the case. But to see them sit there and really try to make Trump seem as if he were any better than Obama, when in reality a majority of the policies we had under that prior Democratic president, including this we must bow down to Israel stance, has kept going. And that person just wouldn't accept that when you talk about Israel, you're not talking about the people that are over there. See, they do that because you have to give them credit. The officials who are in power over there are smart enough to know, yes, what we're doing would conventionally be considered wrong. We're going to try to shame you into liking or at least staying quiet about your discontent with what we're doing. And it's kind of similar to what's being done over here with the CIA director nominee, where you have people saying, forget her human rights violations. You know, she has experience. She served for many, many years. It was the same thing with the Hillary backers. Forget the fact that she voted for the Iraq War and pretty much every other hawkish conservative idea. She'd be the first woman. She has experience. They always try to dance around anyone's main critique of something or someone for the purpose of making you feel bad for noticing how horrible or of poor quality that thing is. And you get to a point where you just say to yourself, now, I just told you how I felt and why I felt the way I did. And then they turn on the broken record and decide to effectively cast out whatever you mentioned. You know. Let's see here. All right, I think Envoy went to sleep and Amino went to bed. It is pretty late. I'm not surprised that the people who frequent my content have decided to hit the hay. I don't know about a broken record, but you're typing all kind of things in there. So I'm very apologetic that everyone is passed out. No one's up past 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So Jewish state has no right to exist until the return. I got here with these fables, man. Hey, I already told you my my discontent with parts of these religions. All right, well, if I get the message, I'll respond back to it. I just want to make sure that there's some coverage of this. And we went back to our same thing where I can't even pronounce that name. It's something X. You know, this does tie into what's going on in the California Senate primary right now, where you have this Republican candidate, I think his name is Pat Harris, and he's being condemned as an anti-Semite. And even though he said some things which are, in my opinion, anti-Semitic, there's a lot of truth to his various comments. So I'll probably talk about that tomorrow, just his whole campaign and how, while he's not someone I would ever endorse or back, there's still validity to his arguments from just sitting there and watching an actual interview with him. It's really an interesting thing, because people try to get you on this idea of, hey, don't go and look this up yourself. Let me tell you this person is bad. And then you go and watch it and you go, wait a second, I kind of, think this is not entirely too far off of what's actually going on, so it's kind of like that. But it's hard to really tolerate the continued cycle we have where people just won't accept the fact that the U.S. is not a strong country, because at least in terms of its world standing, because it's in the pocket of Israel, who it backs blindly, who it gives billions of dollars to, while its people starve on the streets, can't afford school, can't afford a decent paying job, and are hung out to dry. It's a cycle that people don't want to accept, that these foreign governments have been able to acquire more funds from the U.S. government than the common man over here. And someone will come in here and say, "Oh, welfare," but you're not even talking about that, because really my idea would be if you use the funds for domestic programs that, so for example, something that recruits people for jobs so they can make the cash themselves. You have many states such as mine that have are notorious for making occupations difficult to acquire. But no, instead they want to write it off as, we can't afford anything over here. We can give billions of dollars to a country that kills people that don't agree with it. You know, it shows the crookedness of all of it. And really what's even more disturbing is that a lot of people are going to react to what happened today with surprise. I can't believe they would do this to the Palestinians. But it's been frequently noted for many, many years that in all these two-state solutions where people were saying, hey, give them their own land, each side got a piece of Jerusalem. And to have the U.S. recognize this as the capital of Israel is kind of a slap in the face toward giving the Palestinians any leeway. I'm not saying tell them it's their capital, but at the very least, you know, I could believe that Trump wasn't going along with his predecessors by thinking that the Israelis were just these darling, innocent angels and the Palestinians were these evil, venomous creatures that were trying to stop peace, when it's the reverse. And again, I'm speaking about the Israeli government. I just want to keep repeating that because I already can see the accusations of anti-Semitism are going to be worn forever. Yeah, but Envoy, go look up the proposals for peace that have been pushed out, because what you'll see is that the Palestinians are more likely to give concessions and offer things up, and the Israelis say, "Yeah, we're not going to have that." So, my bias, admittedly, is based off of fact. I didn't just pick a side. It's which one appears to be doing more to try and advance the cause of peace versus who just wants to have arguments and get angry and go back and forth until the end of time. You know, some of us are going to live to be 100 years old, and the Israelis and Palestinians are still going to be fighting. The U.S., at least its population, is still going to back candidates that don't do anything for them, have been proven not to do anything for them. And it feels like the cycle that will never end. Just as Envoy said about that conflict. This is sad. It's like how it went down the Bible. Well, I've studied religion history, so I know they have been negative too. I grew up with some people who were Palestinian. Or so you're I didn't think you weren't, you know, necessarily not versed on this, but those various peace treaties and attempts at peace do get to become a headache when you start looking for them over and over, because they've been attempted so much. The 7-year tribulations are getting close. You're going to have to explain that one, Jamie. And I appreciate you for continuing the saga of having people just come in here and never seen them before, and then you probably never will see them again after that stream's over. I mean, we had a similar scenario when the net neutrality thing happened back in December. It must have been about 20 or 30 people, and it was insane. And it's always like it is now, where it's maybe 5 or 6 going back and forth, and everybody's just sitting and doing that. So it all goes together. All right, so it looks like everyone is tucked out. And we're probably not going to see anything else from anyone. So I will definitely do some tomorrow, but I'm gonna. It's probably going to be politically related, but I think it'll be interesting given what it's about or regarding. So I will see you later.